Good morning, everyone. The Delaware County Commissioner meeting for September 6th, 2018 is now in session. Would you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good morning. To my right is Vice President and fellow Commissioner Barb Lewis. To my left is fellow Commissioner Jeff Pitton. Our clerk today is Sarah DeNova, and our administrator, Mike Fromer. With that, let's begin.
Resolution number 18-956, in the matter of approving electronic record of the proceedings from regular meeting held August 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-956. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
We have no public or elected comment this morning. Resolution number 18-957, in the matter of approving purchase orders, then and now certificates and payments of warrants on batch number CMA PR 0905.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-957. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-958, in the matter of approving travel expense requests.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-958. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-959, in the matter of approving the final schedule of construction assessments for the Whiting Creek Estates Section 4 Drainage Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-959. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-960, in the matter of approving the final schedule of construction assessments for the Scott number 604 lateral number 2 Drainage Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-960. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-961, in the matter of approving the final schedule of construction assessments for the Havens 503 Drainage Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-961. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-962, in the matter of approving an addendum to the intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the Delaware County Automatic Data Processing Board, the Delaware County Board of Commissioners, and the Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township relative to the provision of information technology services.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Good morning, Commissioners. George Kaitza, Delaware County Auditor. Commissioners, I'm here this morning to present the addendum to our current intergovernmental agreement with Orange Township. This is an agreement that I worked on very closely with Lee Bodner, the township administrator, to arrive at an addendum that enables us to continue to provide shared services to Orange Township while at the same time protecting our data center staff from any kind of a hostile work environment. So this addendum reflects that work product. It was approved unanimously by the Orange Township trustees, and it has also been approved by the data board. And so it is now, and I've signed on behalf of the data board, and it is now ready to be approved by the Board of Commissioners. The reason there is no approved as to form signature on that is because of the concern that there may be a conflict of interest with the prosecutor's office representing both the Board of Commissioners as well as Orange Township. And since this is really an addendum that has no financial consequence to it, it simply changes some of the terms of the agreement. There was really no need to require that signature under the approved as to form. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'd just like to thank you for, I know quite a bit of negotiation took place, and I'm glad that you're able to help the citizens of Orange Township and your office. I know that this has been a great help to the township, to Orange, and so you stayed with it and found a good solution, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lewis.
Yeah, I would also like to thank you, and I know Steve been helpful in this process, and a bunch of other people. And as a resident of Orange Township, I want to say this is a good thing for Orange Township, and this is definitely in the direction of where we're going from a county perspective, and that is leveraging our highest level of expertise with other jurisdictions, and those create win-win situations, and we've got one here. A challenging situation, but we worked through it, and I want to compliment you and the board and Orange Township for working through it.
Thank you, Commissioner Benton.
I guess I'll add a brief comment as well. Your term hostile work environment, it's unfortunate that it required kind of redefining the rules that we're going to be playing by, but sometimes that happens, I suppose. I don't understand why it has to happen, but it did, and to the credit of the trustees, to the credit of Lee Bodner, to the credit of George Kaisa, and everyone else that's involved, I think we've got something that allows us to move forward without just saying we can't do it anymore, because I think shared service is very important. We're going to save Orange Township money. They still have a financial obligation to us, but it's a win-win for everybody. So,
Thank you, Commissioner
Yeah,
Merrick.
I would also like to thank you for recognizing National Blue Sport Coat Day. And everybody in attendance observed it, so I want to thank everybody.
I guess that
like John Melton's blue sport coat?
Those with a sport coat.
John has his at his office.
I'm in black.
That's
I know
right,
I
black.
wear blue.
Yeah,
I think it's,
but you have a blue
Oh,
shirt
Mike.
on.
Yeah.
You had blue.
No, it's,
Shoot.
if there's no other cogent conversation on this topic, then a vote.
Vote on motion 18-962. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioners.
you, Heather.
Thanks, George.
Before I relinquish the podium, we had a very unique event that occurred a couple of weeks ago, and that was a visit from President Trump to Delaware County. And in conjunction with that, we also have a very unique recognition that I would like to make this morning, and that goes to Mr. Steve Lewis. And Mr. Lewis, if you would please come up and join me at the podium. Steve worked very closely with the White House staff and the Secret Service in terms of reviewing the communication requirements for the president's visit, and that's very unique in and of itself. You have a presidential visit, but in addition to have our staff working so closely with the White House and the Secret Service. And in addition to that, it's very unique that we would receive a certificate of appreciation from the White House. And so
how
I
cool
want
is
to
that?
take this opportunity to publicly recognize Steve Lewis for his work and also to present him with the certificate. And if I might, it reads, "The members of the White House Communication Agency wish to express their sincere appreciation for the outstanding manner in which you provided support to the President of the United States during his visit to Columbus, Ohio. Your unique abilities, coupled with your superb attitude, support, and professionalism, enabled our agency to provide critical communications for the President, the White House staff, and the United States Secret Service." Signed by Stephen A. Wagoner, Presidential Communications Officer. So, Steve, I'd like to
Gee.
present that to you.
Gosh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
How cool is that?
You want to say anything?
Yeah, speech?
You want to speak? Any comments? Now, were you responsible for the air conditioning in the building?
That's a good question. Yeah, what air conditioning?
Sorry?
I said, no, thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you
That's really
very
neat. Great
Congratulations,
stuff.
everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed.
Resolution number 18-963, in the matter of approving and authorizing execution of documents for the National Cybersecurity Communications Integration Center, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, to assist the Delaware County Board of Elections in complying with the directive from the Ohio Secretary of State.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Morning, Commissioner. Steve Lewis with the IT Department. This directive came from the Secretary of State in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security, and it was received by the Board of Elections, and essentially what they want to do is a penetration test on our network to make sure that we are secure prior to the November election. In addition to that, they are asking that they conduct a phishing campaign, which is to help educate users on what emails are safe and what emails are not safe. So this is basically authorizing me to submit the forms to allow the Homeland Security Department to conduct those tests.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, when's it going to be done, or is it all secret?
No, it will be done after hours. So, you know, they're going to be hitting our firewall very hard, trying to penetrate it. And so I'm going to ask that it starts after October 1st, which will be after the fair. And so sometime after October 1st, before the 1st of November.
Okay. Is this the first time we've done anything of this?
Actually, every other year, just on my own behalf, I contract with a company to do a vulnerability and a penetration test, just to kind of make sure that the best practices that we're putting in place is actually being effective, which is very helpful when we get audited by the state each year on the things that we do. So we share that with them, and that information is very valuable to them and us.
This is the first time the Homeland Security's required it, though.
That is correct.
Okay. Well,
Now, the absentee balloting will start early October. There's no conflict, need to do it in front of that, or doesn't matter?
No.
No real out-of-pocket cost.
Not for this one. When we conduct it typically every other year, there is a cost associated with that, but that's from an independent organization that we choose, and we like to rotate that or choose a different company each time.
Okay. Well, good. Appreciate the effort to keep us safe.
Well, I appreciate your efforts, because without the budget that you provide us and without the equipment that we have, I would be nervous. But you authorized a very nice firewall for us last year. We've got that in place, and I feel good. And, you know, coupled with the shared services, you know, some of these other agencies that we're taking on, as a quick update, we're getting ready to, we've got the fiber in place installed at Sunbury Police Department and the Village of Sunbury. So they're going to be coming online. And what a lot of people don't understand is when we connect these facilities or these other agencies, they are taking advantage of that infrastructure that you've purchased to protect our county. They're behind that firewall, so they get to reap those benefits as well.
It gets back to shared services and the value in doing things together.
Another
Yes.
example.
One additional quick update is I'm going down to Liberty Township today to meet with some individuals to look at the entry into their facility so that we can get fiber into there. So I would suspect I'll be in front of you soon with a finalized agreement with them to begin those shared services.
Yeah, they'll have to, we don't have fiber to Liberty, they'll have,
We do.
We do?
It's in front of their building with our agreement with Consolidated Electric. Well, what Liberty Township's responsible to do is build fiber from their fire station out to that fiber. And that's what we're looking at today, is what the best entrance point of that building is. So they will have direct route fiber back to us.
any other questions or comments?
Getting back to the directive, then, just a clarification, this has nothing to do with voting machines. We're not online. I mean, our voting machines are not online.
That's correct.
This is totally separate, just because when the Board of Elections is mentioned, people naturally
Yep,
think of voting.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Totally
okay,
separate.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve.
Vote.
Vote on motion 18-963. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Bitts?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 18-964, in the matter of recognizing September 2018 as National Preparedness Month in Delaware County.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion?
Morning, Commissioners. Sean Miller, Director, Delaware County Emergency Management. And as was mentioned, September is National Preparedness Month. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First, several years after the attacks of September 11th, September was first set aside as Preparedness Month as kind of a remembrance for those events, but also mid-September is also peak hurricane season for the Atlantic Ocean. But this year will mark us being 17 years removed from the attacks of September 11th. And tying in with this recognition of Preparedness Month, I thought that it might just be appropriate to underscore the importance of preparedness by reading a very brief excerpt out of the 9/11 Commission report, because anyone who is younger than, say, their mid-20s probably will not have a very good recollection of that day, whereas probably most of us here in this room do. I know I'll never forget it. But I just wanted to highlight some of the heroism that occurred that day, specific to the passengers on Flight 93. And Flight 93 was the one that flew out of Newark and was bound to San Francisco, made it into Ohio, did an abrupt turn, and then crashed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So very briefly, to kind of set the context, the passengers eventually found out on that flight what was going on and initiated a revolt against the hijackers. So at 9:57 a.m., the passenger assault began. Several passengers had terminated phone calls with loved ones in order to join the revolt. One of the callers ended her message as follows: "Everyone's running up to first class. I've got to go. Bye." The cockpit voice recorder captured the sounds of the passenger assault, muffled by the intervening cockpit door. Some family members who listened to the recording report that they can hear the voice of loved ones among the din. We cannot identify the voices in there, but the assault was sustained. In response, Jera, one of the hijackers, immediately began to roll the airplane to the left and right, attempting to knock the passengers off balance. At 9:58 and 57 seconds, he then told another hijacker in the cockpit to block the door. Jara continued to roll the airplane sharply left and right, but the passenger assault continued. Shortly thereafter, he changed tactics and pitched the nose of the airplane up and down to disrupt them. The recorder captured the sounds of loud thumps, crashes, shouts, breaking glasses and plates. Shortly thereafter, he stabilized the airplane, and there were some communications between the hijackers. The passengers continued their assault despite the maneuvers that he did, and one of the hijackers at 10:02 said to put it down, the plane down. The hijackers remained at the controls and must have judged that the passengers were only seconds away from overcoming them. The airplane headed down. The control wheel was turned hard to the left. The airplane rolled onto its back, and despite all of this, the assault on the cockpit to regain control of it by the passengers was sustained until the plane crashed at 580 miles per hour in that field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The objective of the hijackers was to crash the airliner into symbols of the American Republic, the Capitol, or the White House, and thankfully he was defeated by the alerted, unarmed passengers of United Flight 93. So I think that that is a fine example of so many acts of heroism that were displayed that day. And of course, we cannot forget those affected at the Pentagon or the World Trade Center. And of course, many lives were lost at both of those locations as well. So I just wanted to bring that up to underscore the importance of preparedness. And as a result of this being National Preparedness Month, we're going to have a social media campaign throughout the month talking about various things that the residents of Delaware County can do, simple preparedness tips that will go a long way without having to spend a lot of money or even time, but sometimes those small things can make a big difference. Additionally, I wanted to point out that on September 20th, of course it would be Jug Day, there is going to be a nationwide test of the wireless emergency alert system. And you may know that system as the Amber Alert system on your phones, because that is how most of those alerts come through in this part of the country. But they're going to do a test at 2:18 p.m. in the afternoon, and so that'll be nationwide, and anyone that is within range of a cell tower with a compatible cell phone should get that alert, and it will only last about a minute or so. But I did want to point that out to you. And additionally, we would urge folks to take those preparedness steps so that their families or places of business are prepared for whatever hazards may come our way. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Questions or comments?
The September 20th test, is that going to come through as a text on?
That's a great question. It'll be a text-like message, and it will make the same noise as the Amber Alerts do, and it'll look very similar. but there will be language on that message referencing the national test. But yes, it'll come through very similar to a text message. That's a great question.
So everybody it'll be clear from the text message that this is just a test.
Yes, yes, and this will be a nationwide, the first nationwide wireless emergency alert test. There will also be kind of the more traditional emergency alert system test through TV and radio as well. But this will be the first national test of the wireless component.
I'll make a brief comment, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lewis to, Commissioner Lewis is on your board, and I've asked her to read the proclamation. I just want to make a comment. Sometimes I think getting a little philosophical is probably a good thing, and reminding us of the events that day and the bravery shown by those passengers that day, and how many lives did they save by the actions they took. And the thing I think we need to remember is the people in that plane, they weren't Democrats, they weren't Republicans that day, they were Americans. And the way the Supreme Court hearings are going, we need to remember that we're Americans first. We're not Republicans or Democrats, and we seem to lose sight of that. But I believe there was a movie made of that event, which I saw, and a lot of bravery when you know you're going to die, but the lives they saved that day can never be discounted. And I haven't made the memorial yet, but one day I'd like to get there. So, okay. With that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean, for reminding us of September 11th. There's actually a ceremony in Sunbury, and it takes place every year commemorating those who have fallen and given their lives as a result of the war and terror. And in particular, those from Ohio. I believe there are, I was told, around 285. I'd have to check my notes. Brave men and women who have died as a result of that war. But it is in Sunbury, Ohio. The public ceremony is 4:30 in Sunbury. There's actually a memorial there. And so that's where everyone will be assembling. I've been honored to ask to speak at that service, and among other speakers. And so I am gratified that this memorial is in Delaware County, but a very special time that we must always remember. Thank you. And I will read the resolution. In the matter of recognizing September 2018 as National Preparedness Month in Delaware County, whereas National Preparedness Month is a nationwide coordinated effort sponsored by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security each September to encourage Americans to prepare for emergencies in their homes, businesses, schools, and whereas this event aims to increase public awareness concerning the importance of preparing for emergencies and to persuade individuals to take action, and whereas during the month of September, the Delaware County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management will urge residents to plan for and take appropriate measures to make themselves and their families better prepared for emergencies. And whereas being prepared includes having food, water, and necessary medicines in your home to allow you and your family to survive for at least 3 days in the event of an emergency. Addressing and planning for emergencies such as ice storms, dam inundation, or hazardous material incidents that may cause residents to evacuate or shelter in place. And whereas familiarizing themselves and their families with the best way to receive communications in an emergency mitigates situations around their homes and general preparedness. And whereas the Delaware County Emergency Management promotes emergency preparations year-round by working with partner agencies such as Delaware County's Storm Ready, which is certification from the National Weather Service, using traditional and social media to reach out to the community. And Whereas the Board of Commissioners would like to officially recognize the Delaware County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management and its community partners in law enforcement, fire service, 911, EMS, and many other volunteer and civic organizations that routinely offer their services to our community. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Delaware County, Ohio, that the month of September 2018 be designated as National Preparedness Month in Delaware County.
With that, vote.
Vote on motion 18-964. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 18-965, in the matter of establishing a new organization key and approving supplemental appropriations for the Delaware County Emergency Management Agency.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Commissioners, this is grant funding for the purpose of updating the current multi-hazard mitigation plan for Delaware County. And this plan is a little bit different than many of our plans are. Most of our plans are operating guidelines, emergency action plans, things along those lines. However, this plan is more of a reference document, more of a roadmap for us as a community and how we want to approach these feasible hazards in Delaware County. So essentially what this plan does is it looks at the hazards that are realistic in Delaware County. So it looks at ice storms, severe summer weather, floods, severe winter weather, dam inundation, things along those lines, terrorism, cyber concerns as well. But it leaves out things that are not feasible here, such as tsunamis, volcanoes, things along those lines. But at any rate, it looks at these hazards, ranks them from most concern to least concern, identifies what their impacts might be through the use of things like GIS, mapping, and then seeks ways to reduce or eliminate their impacts on our county. And so this funding is grant funding. The match will be my hours on the project, already budgeted hours and time, and this will allow us to hire an intern. The Delaware County EMA Executive Committee has approved the grant as well as approved the hiring of an intern pending successful background reference check and things of that nature. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have about the project.
Any questions or comments?
When do you expect the intern to come aboard?
Hopefully within the next few weeks. We have a fairly tight window for updating this particular plan.
Okay.
We want to get it in place, officially adopted locally and FEMA approved by the end of May of 19. So pretty quick turnaround, but that is exactly 5 years after our previous approval, and these plans are in place for a window of 5 years. And having this in place is important because it allows us to seek federal funds after disasters, certain federal funds after disasters, and we don't want to miss out on that opportunity.
Are you anticipating that you'll be able to keep the intern through the project?
I would think that in an ideal world, the project would end first quarter of 19. So I would anticipate some time in there would be probably the end of the project. But the project would end, or I should say the internship would end when either grant funds are exhausted or the plan is completed, whichever comes first.
Other questions or comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 18-965. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Sean.
Resolution number 18-966, in the matter of approving a transfer of appropriations, supplemental appropriation, and transfer of funds.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Good morning, Commissioners. Karen First, Fiscal Manager. The transfer of appropriation is to reclassify the courthouse furniture from capital equipment to inventoried equipment. And the first supplemental covers the cost of the Phase 2 renovations for the historic courthouse. This is needed in order to obtain the auditor certification prior to the contract coming before the board for approval. And then the next supplemental and transfer of funds is for the Medicaid local sales tax allocation from the state.
Very good. Any questions or comments? I'm going to withhold comment about the MCO, but I think everybody knows my opinion about that. So we'll leave it at that. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-966. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Thank you, Karen.
We're going to come back to item number 14, which brings us to item number 15 on page 700. Resolution number 18-967, in the matter of approving the Ohio Department of Health Contract Unit Tuberculosis Funding Agreement between the Ohio Department of Health and the Delaware County Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Fromer, County Administrator. This agreement is new, and it would be a vehicle where if there's funds available and set aside that we could offset some of our time and management expenses associated with TB control. Currently, we contract with the health district to do TB control, so it would be reimbursed their time and efforts that they've invested in the training and treatment and so forth. So,
We're kind of an intermediary in this.
yeah, we're pretty much an intermediary, and there was really, at this point, no commitment there would be funds available, but it's the vehicle that would be traveled for it, so.
Other questions or comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 18-967. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
That brings us to administrative reports.
I have nothing.
Mr. Lewis?
Just a reminder about the memorial service for the fallen in Sunbury, Ohio, 4:30 this Saturday afternoon.
Mr. Benton?
Just a couple things. We've got the SEBCO renewal meeting tomorrow. That's, I think, at 10 o'clock, and we'll get our official renewal numbers and some more information for the healthcare. The All-Horse Parade is this Sunday at 3 o'clock, but the interesting thing is that the tropical storm Gordon is supposed to be over central Ohio at 3 o'clock on Sunday.
Oh, no.
This could be interesting. I don't remember a wet horse parade. I don't know if they would have it, if it's raining or pouring.
I'm sure if there was lightning or something, it probably wouldn't, but
Yeah, so I don't know.
I don't know about rain.
Yeah, so we'll see. But anyway, that's a great event, and there'll be 30 or 40,000 people along the parade route. It's just a really fun time. Kids enjoy it in particular. That's all I got.
Yeah, the horse parade is always a great event and well-attended, and I think I read somewhere there was no motorized this year.
I thought that's the way it was all
Well, I
the
did
time.
too, but there was something specific
Yeah, I
that you
saw
in
that
the
they-
past there had been, so I don't know. But it's a great event, and this afternoon at 1:30, I'll be at Morpsey Executive. And with that, I believe we do have need for executive session.
We do. Resolution number 18-968, in the matter of adjourning into executive session for consideration of appointment, employment of a public employee or public official to consider the sale of property at competitive bidding.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-968. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
We are now in executive session.
Resolution number 18 dash, where are we at? So sorry.
Fix it up.
Yes, 969, in the matter of adjourning out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-969. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
I believe we have one order of business.
We do. Resolution number 18-970, in the matter of approving an addendum number 2 to the invitation to bid for the sale of the Old County Jail property, 20 West Central Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Good morning, John Melvin, Director of Facility. This addendum creates a optional alternate bid number 1 to the original bid for the old jail to include the property adjacent to that 20 West Central Avenue, known as 22 Court Street, and the parking lot west of 22 Court Street.
Questions or comments?
Bid deadline's October 31st.
Yeah, the alternate, addendum number 1 extended the bid deadline to October 31st.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Vote?
Vote on motion 18-970. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. List?
Aye.
Without objection, if there's no other business to bring before us, we are adjourned.